All right, so who here has used AI? I'm going to try to blast through these slides. How are you using AI?
Just to write things, summarize documents, meeting summaries.
Have you used AI?
ChatGPT as far as, that, like what I said there, use it to study for tests, research, or demographics and everything.
All right, I'm going to teach you something better than ChatGPT for doing research. Who else? How are you using AI?
Rewording messages, emails. Checking.
Yes,
checking.
The career saver. I got a few thoughts I'd like to share with you, buddy. And then you take it and you type it in. And yes, ma'am.
No, we have an individual who analyzes spreadsheet data.
Oh, yes. Actually, it's very good at spreadsheets. The email career saver is something that I implore all of you to. All those things that go on in your head and you're like, I'm going to type this out. I promise you I'm going to send this. You just take that, feed into AI, and then be like, take any word that has an F in it or an S in it, just make sure that that's okay, and then fire it off so I don't lose my job. Yeah, we're all kind of probably using it. You're probably using it on your phone, you know, hey Siri. Dang it, no one answered. Sometimes it sends off a bunch of phones. I love doing that. Or Alexa, or, you know, what other Copilot. There's all sorts of systems that are out there, but AI, artificial intelligence, you know, much like cloud computing, it sounds like some cool, you know, server system in the sky. It's just computers, right? It's a computer at some other place. It uses an LLM and it's digging through a bunch of data sets and it's spitting back. Now, why does AI matter now? Because we've suddenly got really, really advanced ways of processing it, natural language models, the little GPTs that you were all talking about. They can interpret our what we're asking as well as how we're asking it. We're making it a little bit more human. So there's kind of three big categories of AI. Narrow AI, which is where we are now. General AI, where you can start to have conversations. It's going to understand your inflection. It might actually be able to see your face and recognize that you're stressed or upset or happy. And then artificial superintelligence. And that's where we all become slaves to the sentient robot overlord, and is very, very far away. But general AI, probably, you know, 20 years ago, we were like, this isn't going to be around for another 100 years. General AI is going to probably maybe be around for some of our lives here. So we're getting really close. But for the purpose of this discussion, we're in narrow AI. It's very targeted. It has basically a specific purpose. So even when you look at the ChatGPTs, the Claudes, the Bards, whatever system that you're using, and I'm going to focus primarily on commercial stuff because that's how we're all sort of dipping our toes into it. It's very narrow. It's doing one-on-one things. Like when you're asking ChatGPT to do something, it's not going, oh, I'm interpreting this. It's saying, oh, he wants me to do an image. So I'm going to go to my image LLM and my image system, and I'm going to go through that, and then I'm going to build the image off of that. And that's what it's doing. It's not taking everything in a entirety of, you know, all the context and everything else, and then driving it. It's making logical decisions about what you're actually asking it. So narrow AI is where we're at. AI is not new. In fact, who knows who Alan Turing is? Do you know what the Turing test is?
Yes.
What's your it can be very broad strokes.
Can you tell you're talking to a machine?
Yeah, it was a way back in the 1950s. So Alan Turing was a mathematician in England. He was like, well, how do we sort of figure out if computers have been become as smart as us? 1950s. Computers in the 1950s couldn't process what my smartwatch does now. We're talking warehouses. As things got smarter, AI continued to develop. So your very early AI, you know, very narrow AI interpretation and mostly like data aggregation and trying to interpret information started occurring in the 1960s and 70s. 1980s, they started building expert systems, which means very targeted, trying to figure out, you know, weather systems, climate prediction. They were moving towards machine learning, where as you're getting information out, the computer's starting to learn, oh, this data I've seen before, and I can rely on it from my previous discussions. Now we're getting into deep learning. The thing that we're going to talk about today, breakthrough LLMs. So basically large language models. That's these huge databases just filled with words, phrases, conversations that it has taken, mostly out of YouTube, which is why you get some pretty wild, interpretations of questions. But these systems went through and tried to figure out, how do we talk? What are we talking about? It'll go through and try to figure out, well, where in my database have I heard this before, and spit it out. And we can do it for cheap or free, which is amazing. Previously, these all required you to have, a computer degree, computer science degree, and access to, huge data centers. Now I can log on my phone and ask it a question immediately and get a response. So again, why is it popular? Because it's accessible. Advances in computational power. Interestingly, we owe a lot of our AI breakthroughs to crypto bros. The folks who went out and started investing in crypto currency during the pandemic. Anyone here a computer gamer? Just me? Okay, cool. It was really hard to buy a video card during the pandemic. And the reason was because NVIDIA video cards were really good at processing small amounts of data very, very quickly. So for cryptocurrency, we're doing crypto mining. They took tons of these video cards and they would set up these farms. There was a bunch in Plattsburgh, New York, because apparently it had like the cheapest internet power in the entire country. And it would just go through, and I don't really understand how crypto mining works, but that grew this technology really, really quickly. Intel realized, oh, we could actually make chips specifically for this. And now they make processors and chips that are designed for AI. Really, really cool. Big data availability. The other thing is when we went remote, we started doing everything online, which meant that all these companies started investing a lot in data centers. Everyone has access, well, not everyone, but most people have access to high-speed internet either in their homes or pretty close by. It's much more accessible than ever. And then ChatGPT sort of was the breakthrough, but the LLMs actually started to become available, which was something that hadn't really been done before. Like I said, it was mostly through research before. Democratized, easy access, free low cost, simple to use. At the same time, there's a saying in technology, right? If you're not paying for the product, you are the product. So this is all also learning from us, it's mining from us. So we are part of the experiment. Benefits of AI and emergency management. Who here has enough time to get all of your stuff done? Enough resources, enough people? Anyone? Absolutely not. AI is really good at taking tons and tons of information and processing it very quickly. That's what computers are really good at. What are humans really good at? Creativity, philosophy, thinking about problems in different ways. Computers actually kind of stink at that. They're very logical. It wants to get from point A to point B, which is why we're still, again, in very narrow AI. So if you take your creativity, your problem-solving skills, your thinking skills, and you combine it with AI, you can get super, super efficient at your job. Or if you're like me and you're lazy and you don't want to do more work than you have to, you can use AI to enhance that and have it do the things that like we're just doing for the sake of doing things. I hate to say it, but most grant applications, all you're basically doing is taking the question they're asking and filling it in with a bunch of random information, hoping that at some point you'll get some money out of it. It can be really challenging to interpret that. Most of the time you're just filling out words for the sake of filling out words because that's just how we've done grants forever. You could use AI to assist you in that process, maybe outlining it so that you don't have as much work to do. You can feed the grant into that. It can tell you exactly what it's asking, and then you can use your brain power to say, okay, cool. I know what it's asking. I know the structure. Now I just need to do the human stuff and finesse it so that it makes sense for the other end of the person, the other end of the line, the human that's going to answer it. So assistance in using exercise scenarios, objectives, and documentation. Who uses HC for your exercises? Is it fun? Oh, you have to. You're contracted. I would hope so. Yes, good answer. You get to work another day. HCEEP is pretty onerous. There's a lot of requirements. There's a lot of documentation. FEMA has said you can do HCEEP Lite. That's totally okay. But for someone who maybe is just thrown into the role, like a lot of EMDs are, you miss the select board hearing where they're selecting who's going to be the EMD. HCEEP can be, kind of stressful and difficult. You could use AI to help you with that process. Guidance and recommendations, run your plans through this. We're going to see this in a second. So, like I said, HCEEP exercise about the work. Rapid analysis, taking tons of that information. So like the person who posted online with the spreadsheets. I did a huge physical security assessment in it's one of the University of California schools, Irvine, huge school. And we processed 800 rooms while we were there. And we were looking at a whole bunch of stuff. And we got back and we just had this huge data set, just so much information. And, typically you're like, all right, how do I have to process this? What am I going to do to get out of this? And I wanted to get something to the leadership of the school to say, hey, here's some trend analysis right off the bat. Like, here's the things that we identified immediately. And 800 rooms, we're looking at like 30 different variables for each room. So you're talking, you know, I'm not that good at math, thousands and thousands of little data entries there. And I was like, all right, do a quick executive summary of the information that you found. Just curious to see if it could. And immediately spit out, okay, here's all the rooms, the number of rooms that were missing fire safety equipment, or didn't have a communication device in it that could call out for help, or didn't have the speaker system that they utilized. And we could start to say, okay, of all the data sets, you know, 25% of the rooms were missing this component. So at least then leadership has an idea of like, uh-oh, this is gonna stink, or hey, we're doing better than we thought. And then we could build off of that. So again, what did I let AI do? I had them go through, I used the AI to basically interpret the data that it's really, really good at. And then I got to figure out, all right, how do I communicate this effectively to the leadership of the school that we were working with? Enhanced communications. Who here likes writing mass notification messages, iPause messages? 360 characters, 90 characters, you're trying to get as much information packed into that as possible. That also is potentially saving lives. So you've got to get the right information to the right people with the right amount of characters. Super difficult. You can build out your comms with this. All this stuff that, you know, basically augments you. The way that I like to describe AI is it's like a mech suit. You're putting it on top of you so that you're a more effective emergency manager. If you don't know what you're doing though, it gets real dangerous. So challenges and ethical considerations. Who here has an AI policy for the agency that you work for? And have you read through it? Does it exist? Yeah, so do you have a thought or?
Yeah, well, for a long time, I was using Grammarly, and then they shut down Grammarly.
Oh, yeah. So Grammarly is it just memorizes all your keystrokes. So every password you put in, every username, I believe there's some link to some foreign countries as well. It's a huge sort of threat. Very useful for what it was doing.
But now you really don't even need it.
Right, yeah. Just keep that stuff in the back of your head. Again, like I was saying, everything that you put in there is also helping it learn. So there's some ethical stuff, right? So the data that it's pulling from, like I said, some of these LLMs were based off of millions of hours of YouTube videos to build up the language component of it. Anyone who's been on YouTube, you get your first video, you're like, this is great. Second video, oh, this is sort of interesting and connected. Third video, it's like panda bears rapping while riding on motorcycles, and you are completely off the rails. And there's millions and millions and millions of those videos. It's going to ingest whatever biases, you know, threatening, sketchy stuff on there. Anything that's on the internet could potentially be in there. So you have to be a good person and understand when you're writing something in that if it's something that is related to, you know, any sort of ethical or, you know, prejudice or whatever judgment-based information, that you are being very clear in both reviewing it as well as making sure that whatever is being spit out isn't bad, because you don't want to don't submit anything cold. Don't like AI write this and then hand it in as though it's your own. Dependence on technology. So it requires internet. You can actually make your own GPT using NVIDIA stuff now. You can build your own LLM on your computer if you wanted to, as long as you have an NVIDIA video card. But if you don't have high-speed internet, you're kind of out of luck. So if you're relying on AI to do all your job and then the flood happens or the windstorm and you lose your internet and you don't know how to actually do your job, you will continue to not know how to do your job and you won't have the robots to help you. Garbage in, garbage out. Making sure that you ask the right questions, that you understand what the response is that is coming out of it, to make sure that it is what you were actually asking it and that it's correct information. So you need to know before you go. You need to be an emergency manager first. So when you're asking it to help you outline perhaps an exercise that you need to understand, are the components being met correctly, right? Is it using the right capabilities if you have to, you know, use a FEMA capability or, you know, some sort of focus area that you are worried about for your community? If you haven't started, I do suggest you dip your toes in, you know, use the ChatGPTs. Play with it. When you're using information and putting it in there, if it's something that's like sensitive that you're not allowed to email, I probably wouldn't put it in there. Most of the people here are public sector, So your stuff is kind of available anyways, but if it's sensitive or it's not something that you would put on a public facing website, just think twice about posting it on there. It's not gonna be able to go through and find credit card numbers and like your usernames and passwords, but it's gonna put all that stuff into the aggregate. So if there is something that says like, oh yeah, there's this giant vulnerability in the Department of Public Safety building in Waterbury, Vermont, and someone just happens to search, hey, are there any giant vulnerability concerns in the Department of Public Safety building in Waterbury, Vermont? It will spit that out because it's gonna go back to its LLM and say, oh, I remember someone said that, and here it is. So know the capabilities and limitations. But again, find some stuff that like you know how to do, that you feel comfortable in, and that's where you can play with it, test it out. All right, we're just gonna skip through this. We're gonna go right to the demo. Yeah, here's just some stuff I suggest you kind of try out. Do some AARs, like take your AARs, like a whole bunch of them, put them into one document, and then see if you can find some trend analysis within your community, right? That's super handy. That would take you forever. You'd have to read thousands of pages, right? But if you can take 100 AARs in there and say, hey, what are we screwing up every single time? What do you see in the things that don't work? And what are we doing really, really well? And now you can build that into your future planning. That's awesome. Summarizing stuff for people who don't know. You can take your documents and say, hey, explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Okay, I understand it now. Explain it to me like I'm a high school student. Okay, now explain it to me like I'm a technical expert and I need to go present this to somebody really important. A lot of FEMA documentation guidance, like if you're not in it all the time, it can sound really confusing. We use lots of different language. You can ask it to go through and find all of your acronyms and turn them back into the actual words. So lots of really like easy stuff that you can start with. All right, we'll go right to the demo. Any questions, comments, thoughts while we're where we're at?
So I'll make 2 comments. So I'm hearing in the chat, if people are saying things in the room, you gotta say it loudly so that the microphone can pick it up. And then also, much like you were just saying that the AI should be taken out, the acronyms, if you could do the same, that would be wonderful.
Oh God, yes.
I've been trying to pitch them, but I don't know all of your acronyms. So I'm like, here's the one.
Yes, LLM, large language model. Large language model. That's like the data set. That's where everything, the ChatGPTs, the Claudes, we're going to look at a few different things here. I'm from Putney, Vermont, so I'm throwing them under the bus. The prompt here, so prompting, right? So everything here is started with a prompt. How you talk to the AI is how it's going to respond. I like to treat the AI as though it's a partner or maybe an intern. And I'm very polite. I ask it to do things. I say, please, or would you consider, or could you help me? Julie Benedict is a taskmaster, and she tells it what to do. And she's very direct. She told me this. And if we were both to ask the same question, we would get a different response, because the way that I'm talking is how the LLM is interpreting it, especially as you get into the newer versions of these. They are starting to interpret your tone. So if you're terse and you're kind of coming at it hot, it might respond with less finesse. So in this case, I'm a lost soul. I don't know what I'm doing. I missed the select board meeting. They were picking emergency management director, and I got picked. And they told me LEMP. What is an LEMP? Local emergency management plan? I don't know what this is. I'm the town foreman. I don't know how to fix this stuff. I don't know where to start. Again, so I asked it. And lo and behold, is there, we got some state people who can kind of take a look at this and see if it matches up. So this stuff is all live too. I did not change anything because I also want to show all like the warts and scars and broken stuff with this.
But which program are you using?
This is ChatGPT, sorry, yes. I'm going to use 3 just because there's 3 that are super easy. So ChatGPT is the sort of Swiss Army knife. You can do pictures, you can do some computer programming. It's good at a lot of stuff, not necessarily great at one specific thing, but it's useful for all sorts of stuff. So it's going through and it's talking about, all right, well, we know we need to find some planners. You need to find an EOC. Here's some, preferred EOC positions that you might need. A director, information, someone doing public information, some staff members, building your team, a primary and alternate EOC. with details about equipment and stuff there. What resources? How do you purchase stuff? Who has the money? Your spending limits, your business standings with the municipal context. These are things that would you have thought of this on your own? I don't know that I would have, but it's starting to prompt you to say hey, here's some questions you can start to ask. State support, public information warning, blah, blah, blah. It even picked up Vermont alert message. I didn't tell it to go to the Vermont LEMP. It found that on its own, which is kind of cool. Public notice locations, things like the town hall, libraries, etc., which is something that is, discussed, right? We're very comfortable, we put it all on social media and the website, but a lot of people still get their, information from the bulletin board at the local general store. So again, this is, you're starting from nothing, but you might already have sort of a plan and say, hey, could you actually take a look at this plan and maybe see if I'm missing some stuff? So we'll do that now.
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
Someone is asking, is ChatGPT a program you purchase?
I pay for it only because you get the better model. It's $20 a month, and for me, that's for the amount of stuff that it does for me. I have ADD, as you might imagine, as I'm pacing around and I can't stop gesticulating and moving around. It's really, really good at helping me with my planning and my project development. One of the things that I use it for the most is I say, here's a task that I need to get done. I know it takes me about this much time to get each of these components. Can you build me a calendar so that over the next 3 weeks, I have some milestones I have to hit in order to accomplish this goal, because I'm a mess with that. If I don't do it, it's going to be the night before and I'm like, oh my God, I got to do 3 weeks worth of work tonight to get this done. So I pay for it because it's faster. It's a little bit smarter. I should say, so all of the newest models that these are using, so ChatGPT, I believe is 3.5. Claude uses Opus, that's its newest version. If you're paying for it, you get a little bit faster, you get more responses. So if you're asking it tons of questions, or you're doing things like computer programming, or you are doing graphics and stuff, you just have more access. And then in some cases, you get a better answer because the newest models can pass your, your bar exams, your SATs, all these tests. They have charts where you can see how smart is your AI. Yes, ma'am.
Another question, is there a delay in the information that AI can access? For instance, at one time, I think ChatGPT could only access information from up to 2021.
Yes, so there is and there isn't. So yeah, the LLM that ChatGPT was built off of was limited up to a certain number of years ago. But now most of them can also access the internet. So if it doesn't have it in its original database, it can go out and look for it. And I'll show you one system in particular that does that. But yeah, anything that's sort of new and emerging, you have to remember what is the lag time for a system to sort of catch up on that. So if FEMA comes out with some new guidance and it hasn't been on the internet for very long, it may not have been scanned and stored within the LLM, and the whatever GPT, Claude, whatever you're using may not be smart enough to know that it's there yet. So yes, very good question. Let's see. So in this case, I was like, hey, I'm super lazy, as I alluded to earlier. Can you just fill this out for me? So let's see how it did. It's got my name, which is weird. I didn't give it my name. So the newer versions capture information as you're posting stuff. You'll see it. There'll be a little marker that says adding to memory, which is sort of scary and intimidating, but it actually does make a lot of stuff faster. So if you do things over and over and over, it starts to recognize patterns and it'll say oh, he's doing this again, so I'm gonna help him out. But for whatever reason, I remember my name. So the EMD, Zack, select board chair, town manager, if applicable, nothing there. EOC gave me some basic roles, not all of them, as you can see, EOC positions. Again, I'm trying to break this, so we did not give it any additional information. Primary EOC location, gave the town hall with the correct address, if that's where the stuff is run. It's asking for some additional things. It threw in radios, computers, emergency supplies. I don't know if the Putney Town Hall has this. They probably don't, maybe they do. But it's at least prompting you to think oh yeah, we probably should have that stuff. And then alternate, didn't have anything. Resources, blah, 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 blah. It did throw in some state support. USAR, Hazmat, State Police Special Teams, CERTs, Swift Water, all real resources. Public information warning, Vermont alert. Again, I didn't prompt it for that. It found it on its own. And look at that. VEM's number on its own. Pretty smart.
And it's correct.
Yeah. Putney Town website, some social media channels, Brattle Reformer, WKVT. I don't know, is WKVT a real station? Yeah. Local PEG TV station, I don't know what that is. Public notice locations, the town hall, the library, the local post office, all logical places where people gather. Some vulnerable populations, didn't recognize any. I know that there's a few, I mean, there's a bunch of schools in the town and stuff. Shelters didn't put anything, but you can see it's at least going through, it's trying to help you out, but it doesn't know. So this is where you get yourself into trouble. If you don't have that information, you're not aware of it, you're asking it to do it, it can get into some trouble. So I found a plan. Anyone here from Hardwick? Good. So I just pulled, I searched for like available LEMP, and I found Town of Hardwick was listed on the Regional Planning Commission site. So what I want to do is ask, like, all right, after, let's see, what did I ask? Assess this plan and provide some suggested updates or additional information, right? So LEMP is pretty straightforward. You know, it's pretty prescriptive. You're just putting in the information, but it may not be comprehensive. And that's fine. That's not the purpose of it. It's supposed to be your baseline, right? So everyone should be taking your LEMP and then expanding upon it into a full emergency operations plan. Correct? Everyone got that? Foot stomping that? Yeah. But you got your LEMP, and now you sort of have to figure out, well, what do I want to do to make this better? So I put the plan in, I asked it, can you evaluate it and find what else could be done? And it went and it said, hey, we should look at the FEMA Comprehensive Preparedness Guide 101, CPG 101. Great document. And I'll ask it in a second. I don't know which version. There's a few different versions. But now it's taking your plan and it's going, well, all right, this is best practice for Vermont's LEMP. But what about turning this into a full emergency operations plan that's based on CPG 101? So community engagement inclusiveness. This plan does not explicitly mention community demographics or how it engages with whole community in emergency planning. Recommendation, consider adding a section that highlights the demographic composition of Hardwick, vulnerable populations, elderly, disabled, non-English speaking. According to CPG 101, so it even gives a reference so you can go back. Community-based planning should account for those groups and to ensure emergency services are inclusive, including representatives from these groups in planning can improve resilience, right? When you're building your planning team, you want to represent everyone in your community, including vulnerable populations, because they're going to give you perspective that you wouldn't have otherwise. Risk assessment. Yeah, it doesn't have a full risk assessment. Good recommendation, right? I say you don't start writing a plan until you have a risk assessment done, because what are you planning for? So having a good, hazard vulnerability assessment, maybe some physical security assessments, the things that keep you up at night, having those ahead of time will sort of help you guide your overall initiatives, or at least start to look long-term, how am I going to do my training and exercising plan, right? So no risk assessment. Yeah, that's great. That's a good idea. Concept of operations. There's not really a CONOP in LEMPs per se, but understanding how you plan to utilize it and how you plan to run as an agency can be useful, especially for folks who aren't, you and the backups to you. If a community member is going to look at this, they may want to understand, like, what is the agency, how are you functioning, what are your plans, how are you integrating to the other agencies around the state, your local mutual aid agreements, all of that stuff. Evacuation and shelter plans. Yeah, we don't have a full evac plan or shelter plan. You might reference some shelters within there, but having an evacuation plan is super helpful. How are you going to communicate that? Your PIO plans, your public information and communication. So again, super, super helpful. Plan maintenance and updates, always good. And private sector nonprofits. Again, are we thinking about everything as we're going through this? Who wants to ask the plan a question? Anybody got some questions that you're wondering? Throw something out. Let's test it. Let's see, what did it want me to do? Risk assessment. Actually, we'll do community engagement in, let's see if it'll actually let me talk to it. Went away.
Zack, the first time I got to play with ChatGPT, I just asked it to write a report about Tropical Storm Irene in Vermont.
Yeah.
And it spit out a very authoritative report with a whole bunch of wrong numbers.
Yes. So that's called a AI hallucination. So again, without knowing. So this is where you have to use some finesse. So the reason that had a good response is I gave it a document. It knew that document. It has it in front of it and can run it. It also went to CPG 101, which is what I probably would have directed it. But if it didn't have CPG 101, it didn't find that, the Comprehensive Planning Guide 101 from FEMA, then it's going to go into its database and it's going to find whatever it thinks is close enough. And if it doesn't find that, then it's going to start to make it up. So actually, that's a great idea. So I'm going to say, let's see if I can actually get this to respond. Filling out an LEO, let's see. All right. So now we're getting into this live. This is where we can start to break stuff. Can you find me an alternate EOC and some shelter locations in Putney? Let's see what it comes up with. Rich, you probably know this better. I haven't been in Putney in a while, but Putney Fire Department makes sense.
That's the primary.
Putney Central School.
Yep.
Bradwell Shelters. So again, we have some familiarity with the area, so we can verify that that's correct. Yeah, go ahead.
And looking at that, it says Brattleboro area shelters such as those coordinated by the Red Cross, which the regional shelter is Brattleboro Union High School.
Oh, and it's even got a link to Vermont Emergency Management with the current shelters and cooling centers as a link. So there you go. There's some good information. If it was something it didn't know, it might be like, oh yeah, go to the Putney main shelter location 1. Emily was talking to me. I actually ran through an exercise where I gave it a bunch of resources and then ran it as a dispatch center and had it start assigning resources. And when it ran out of the stuff that I had given it, it started making it up. It knew enough that there was an ambulance service near me. It was Missisquoi Valley because I'm up in St. Albans area, but it didn't know the name for some reason. Like in its database, it didn't have it. So it called it like Northern Champlain EMS Agency, but it had the correct number of resources and the location that they were in. So I was saying, hey, I've got a major incident downtown St. Albans. There's a fire burning and it is causing all sorts of issues downtown. I need mutual aid. And I built a run sheet, just made up, so that for a first alarm fire, it would go through my list of stuff, which was just a document I created and put in there. And it would go through and say, okay, first alarm fire, it needs an engine, a ladder, command vehicle, and an ambulance, and that's it. And then I was like, all right, there's a car accident up on the highway. And it was smart enough that I actually screwed up. I said that it was the city that was covering the highway, but town fire actually covers the highway. And it said, well, the city's already at this. We're going to dispatch mutual aid the town to come cover the accident because it's in their district, so it shouldn't have any impact on the fire. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I was like, all right, now there's another incident. And I had already exhausted all my made up, run sheet at this point. And that's when it started going through. And I was like, okay, you have another fire department. Georgia Fire Department's just down the road. And it knew roughly the equipment that it had. Now, if we took, for instance, your resource list from your LEMP that's got it typed and rated, where you actually know that this is its capability, and you were asking specifically, this could get pretty powerful pretty quickly, right? If I need a water tender, not a tanker, because you're out west or something, and you're asking specifically for this type, it could go through your list and basically at least highlight, yeah, these are all the typed water tenders and tankers you have in your region. So anyways, that one's there. I do want to do this. So this is iPause, right? So all of you who have VT Alert, it's a little bit different. You guys aren't doing iPause messaging. So your limitation is 260 characters. iPause is, 240 because it's an SMS message. I actually don't know what the acronym is for that. I think something.
Simple message.
I shall Google search it.
Okay, cool.
Ask ChatGPT.
iPause, the integrated public alert and warning system, runs through FEMA. VT Alert goes out, hits your EAS emergency alert system and your WIA wireless emergency alert system. And that's how you get the cell tower messages that are pushed to your phone, whether you like it or not. You can technically block it, but I'm an emergency manager. I'm in Rutland, Vermont. We just had a large truck tip over, leaking a significant amount of natural gas. There's this virtual pipeline that runs through the state. It goes through there, loaded truck. Accident happened at the intersection of Route 7, Route 4, which is a real intersection downtown, or not really downtown, but kind of. And I'm not sure how far I need to evacuate. And I need a message with an estimated distance to evacuate, preferably with some waypoints to help people know the extent of the evacuation. In a situation involving natural gas from tipped over truck, determining the evacuation zone is critical. Natural gas is flammable, so it's giving you this stuff. You went to the Orange Book. Pretty sick, right? So the Orange Book, the U.S. Department of Transportation, I don't remember the full title. It's basically Emergency Response Guide. Yeah, the ERG. It says it right there. I'm an idiot. All right. Recommends an initial evacuation distance of 800 meters, about a half a mile in all directions. If there's a potential for fire, you should go out to about a mile. Anyone got the orange book on them? Want to look it up? You probably do. Yeah. Check that out. Make sure it's true.
While you're doing that, it is short message service for SMS, and if you wrap it up in 3 minutes, leave 5 minutes for questions.
Oh boy, okay. So it created the message. So 360 character WIA, 90 character WIA, gas leak at route 7 and 4 in Rutland, Vermont, evacuate 1 mile radius. The only thing it didn't do that's a recommended is an agency, but I didn't give it an agency name. So you should say Rutland, emergency, whatever, ahead of your VT alert. Yeah, go ahead.
Interesting that there's 2 intersections of Route 4 and Route 7 in Rutland.
Well, I didn't know that, so. And that's why you don't do it without having some information. But all right, well, here's some waypoints. Does this make sense? North boundary, 1 mile north of Route 7, beyond the Rutland town line. I don't know, probably, is that Pittsford? South boundary, approximately near Clarendon, Route 7 south. East boundary, Route 4 east towards Killington. Route 4 west towards Castleton. I mean, those all sort of make sense. I'm not, I'm not going out there with a measuring stick, but, again, bad information. I'm feeding it garbage in and it's getting some garbage out. All right, we're going to keep moving because I want to, no, Claude. Oh, I already logged out from Claude. All right, here's another one. So this is the nerdy one where Perplexity, if you need to actually verify that this stuff is correct, Perplexity gives you sources. It will confirm information and say, this is where I got it from. Here's some links back. You can verify it yourself. So it's the academic version of this. You can also pay and get access to better stuff. This is the totally free one. But I said, what are the hazards I should assess for Springfield, Vermont? This is a complete hazard vulnerability assessment for the town and community. Natural hazards, extreme winter weather, flooding, severe thunderstorms, extreme heat, drought, landslides, erosion, wildfire, man-made hazards, hazardous materials, incident, infrastructure, transportation. I mean, man-made's a little of a dated term. We use technological, but human-caused, perhaps. And then it's even giving you a little bit of information about conducting the assessment. And then it actually prompts you for some follow-up questions because it's going back to the sources. And if you look at the sources, they're actually pretty useful. You got the hazard assessment, Vermont Emergency Management, State Hazard Mitigation Plan, which does have a lot of this information in it, Local Hazard Mitigation Plan, and then 5 more. It looks like FEMA, another state website. And then, I don't know, some sort of bald eagle. That one you might want to avoid, but Patriots. What are the most, you can just click follow-ups, and then it'll just go down the rabbit hole. Super useful. Claude, which is not logged in here, it logged out, but oh, Eagle Times, that's what it is. All right, that's a local newspaper, I believe. All right, that's a little less scary than I thought it was. Claude is amazing at writing. If you are maybe not a great writer, Claude will take garbage and turn it into gold. It does such a good job. So I often use it when I have maybe some outline of here's the basic information, but I need people to be able to read this at the different levels that I'm saying. So who knows what the grade level is you're supposed to write your public-facing documents?
6th grade.
Yeah. So sometimes, like I've done today, I'm using too many acronyms, or it may be something where I'm using too many other technical jargon, or I'm not maybe arguing or discussing something at a level that is appropriate because I don't understand it, and it can go through and rewrite it. My friend Cloud is very, very good at writing. I use him all the time.